Someone says, "What's the future?" Vaughn Coleman.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for yet another Vaughn Coleman Presents. This is a big one. This is one I wanted to do for a while, and the moment finally struck. But before, I always got to just show myself real quick. So I am launching on Kickstarter too, because I know we've got a lot of Kickstarter guys. So be on the lookout for that. In fact, I'll post the link to my mailing list so you can get notified when it goes live on Kickstarter. But I've got my comic book, Phenomenova, which is live now on Fund My Comic. So Phenomenova follows the idealistic son of a war hero set 20 years after World War III as he gets superpowers and tries his best to strike out and become a superhero following his heroic father's legacy. But he finds himself in way over his head when he attempts to fight a supervillain that is just totally out of his league. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. You can read more about it. I'll post the link in chat now. But you guys aren't here for me. You're here for my guests. So without further ado, let's bring in my guests, Jimmy Palmiotti, Justin Gray, who have both been on the show before, but never together. How you guys doing?
Hello.
We haven't been on a podcast in a long time, Justin and I.
No, not together. No.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Okay,
We
so
have
this
to
is
police
special.
each other now. We have to police our bullshit now.
Oh yeah, how's that been?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Great.
Yeah, so you guys got two campaigns going. 21 Down, I know, is something new, but I mean, you guys have written so much stuff together. I guess I want to start off by asking, how did it go about? Like, how did you guys first meet and start writing together?
Go ahead, Justin. You got that one.
I stalked him for a little bit online right at the dawn of the internets. Basically I wanted to get into comics. I didn't really know how, but the internet made more people accessible than ever before. And I'd already tried the hard road of trying to meet people when they come to conventions and trying to reach out to people through the mail and everything else. But the internet made it a lot easier just to directly contact people. And I was talking to Joe Quesada, Jimmy Palmiotti, and they invited me out one night. And about a month later, I was interning at Marvel Knights. There's some other stuff in there too, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty quick. And we also quickly learned that I'm not really cut out for the office life. But Jimmy and I were in constant contact with each other. So one night I happened to be in a TGI Fridays, probably the last time I was in one. And he called and said, do you want to do this thing for Wildstorm? And I was like, whatever it is, I want to do it. So that was how I came into it. I'm sure Jimmy was already in talks with Bob Harris and Wildstorm.
Yeah, I mean, I got to, we this was after Marvel Knights, right? I already left, or I was still there. Yeah, I already left Marvel Knights, and Justin and I kept in touch. I mean, Justin was an intern there. None of us were really meant for office work, not just Justin, but. It was a very exhaustive 2 years. It was a good 2 years, and it was very exhausting. And I needed to do my own thing. And Bob Harris, who was the editor-in-chief for Marvel, was now working for Wildstorm. And I think I might have pitched Bob like maybe 200 or 300 different series over the years, and nothing ever stuck, at Marvel because they didn't want original work. And then he called me and said they're looking for some ideas, and I Justin and I were always talking, and Justin, no lack of original ideas in that brain, and so we talked out a bunch of things, and I think we pitched two. I think we pitched, Resistance and 21 Down, and they took them both, which was shocking to us. I don't know if it was at the same time, Justin. Maybe it was. I think it was.
I think they were close. They were like one was on the heels of the other because they were doing that Zero book.
That's right.
That had a whole bunch of launch series in it.
Yeah, and we got lucky with 21 Down. I was working with a guy, Jesus Sayas. I was working on a book called Midnight Mass for Vertigo, and I really liked his artwork. So I kind of talked him into doing 21 Down with us, and he was the perfect guy for it, because we needed a very nuanced, horror / kind of sexy looking book, and Jesus was great, and I figured I'd give myself an inking job in the process, so I got to ink the book, and we were off. I mean, we it launched with Resistance, and it launched with a new Gen 13 series, I think at the same time. And out of the 3 books, the 21 Down book was the one that stuck around longer than the other ones. And we got to do a full year worth, and a lot of acclaim. I actually I think I won an award for inking on the book, and then it was doing very well, and we had a lot of people talking about it. It was definitely not a superhero book. It was definitely our own thing. And I like to say a lot of people stole from that book over the years, ideas. And we got to do the 12 issues, and Jim Lee and the guys said, all right, we want a year 2. So we started issue it was going to be season 2, number 1, or, we're going to start number 1 again, but it was actually the 13th issue. And we were working on it when all of a sudden DC Wildstorm decided to kill not only our book, but a bunch of books. And so we already wrote it. It was already drawn. I think I already inked it.
Yep.
And the only thing left was coloring and lettering. And that was the end of that. And for the past 21 years, I constantly would bug DC Comics to get the rights back to it. Honestly, they are so sick of me up there. I get it. But every couple of years, I asked them for the rights. And what happened was, unlike 21 Down, somebody got their hands on our contract on this one and wrote in a different line. So we didn't get to be able to have the rights back. It was owned by Wildstorm and basically owned by DC Comics. So I think with 20 years of bugging DC and Warner Brothers and the crew up there about, hey, can we print the unpublished issue? Can we do a collection? Yada, yada, yada. They say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I got the oil. And they gave me permission with a bunch of rules that we can do a collection. And we can also finally publish the 13th issue. So it needed to be rewritten.
Wow.
Because we lost the script.
Oh man! So you have to rewrite it.
I just found the script itself, but it's so old that I can't read it. So it won't open.
Oh, the file won't open.
Yeah, the file won't open.
Yeah. Well, we kind of reworked the new script. I think it's fun. Yeah. I think the issue's a lot of fun, and it does wrap up one big story part of the 21 Down. They went out giving it away. We do wrap up, the basic premise idea. And again, we DC, they were kind to us to say, hey, you guys can do a one-time printing. So this Kickstarter is the only time it's ever going to be collected in a trade. Mm-hmm. And we even did a 13th issue, which is if you don't want to buy the trade, you just want to buy issue 13 like a regular comic, you can actually buy that. And we had Joe Jusko do a brand new cover for it.
Oh, nice.
So the people who have 1 through 12, there's like the completest. Since I'm a comic collector, I'm a completist. I need to have issue 13 in a regular comic format. That's the Joe Jusko cover. And then also we offered the trade book, which is 220 pages of comics in a hardcover book. We hit the goal, 2 of the stretch goals. So we have a spot varnish that we're going to do on the hardcover, which brings our cost up, but it's going to look better. And then, and we just did a stretch goal, which is going to be we just hit a stretch goal with 40,000, which is going to be one of Justin's book, if I'm correct, right? Justin, I think it's one of your.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's the first issue of Blue Geisha.
Yeah. So that's going to be the stretch goal, the digital file. So if you back it now, not only do you get the books, but you're also getting the stretch goals, which is kind of cool. And again, if you just want to back it digitally, it's very cheap for the 220 pages. It's only $10, I think, or I don't know. Vaughn, you have it in front of you. I can't even.
Yeah.
It's
So
probably
it's
more
still-
than that. Let me see.
So for which one? Just the
Digital
digital
collection.
It's
Yeah,
19.
the digital edition is $19. That's
Oh,
the
why'd
200.
you do 219 instead of 20?
When you do retailing for a living, also you realize $9.99 is cheaper than $10.
Okay.
You know, in your brain. So $19 is cheaper than 20, and you know, you save that dollar. And I don't know what you can buy for $1. I have no idea what's $1 anymore. Maybe you can buy 4 quarters for $1.
Yeah, that'll help you at an arcade. So that's something.
Yeah, an arcade. Yes.
Suddenly it looks like more.
That won't even get you a game. So, but anyway, we offered it a digital version for the book, for the trade, and then we offered a hardcover edition for the trade, and then we have the single issue, and then we have a Amanda Connor Chase issue, which we always do with every Kickstarter with a mystery cover. It's a mystery because she hasn't drawn it yet. That's why it's a mystery, but it'll be good. But we just hit the second stretch goal on there, and there's some art for the 13th issue.
Nice.
Yeah,
I actually colored.
Who did the coloring on that?
I did the coloring on that.
Right.
During COVID, I learned Procreate, and it's, you know, the coloring's good, but it's like the problem with coloring is you constantly want to add more or change it. You know, you're like, oh, that looks good. Could it be better? Yada yada. But there's this thing called deadlines, which make you just hand the damn thing in and move on with your life. So thank God for that, because it's like editing, right, Justin? We'd be writing dialogue all day long. We'd be editing it constantly if we had the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is one of the things I do like about Kickstarter is that I can write a script well in advance and then go back in and go, oh, wait a second, I didn't see this, or we could have gone this way or improved this. And it's been very interesting to do it that way as opposed to having those hard deadlines like we used to have all the time.
Yeah, it's one of the things that and the fact that it's in your hands too. Like even then recently I had someone like give me feedback, and I'm like, okay, this is the last time I'm changing this line. At a certain point you just have to let it go. But because at least you got a finished product is better than no product. I understand that a delayed product is better than a bad product, but also you want it to come out eventually.
Yeah, the good news with this is we have a week left on the Kickstarter. So, and that's the good news, because 7 more days. I will say, though, it's the only time you're ever going to get this book. So as limited as the numbers you see being ordered, that's what's going to exist in the universe, and that's it, because they're not going to go back to press on this. One of the reasons DC was so cool with us on this is because they knew they knew in a way that, you know, it's not going to really do that great. You know, it's 21 years old. I think, right, Justin? Does that make sense? Like 21 or 22 years old?
Yeah, it's 2002, so it's 22, right?
22 years old, yeah. So, I mean, we know the audience is limited, but look at that artwork by Jesus. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know? The artwork is just stunning, and
I don't know. The concept held up enough that it was used, you know, all through there's probably 4 shows or at least properties that were very, very similar to it that came out in, you know, the 6 or 7 years after it was out.
Yeah, Medium, right? Medium was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
You know,
it definitely hit that vibe. And if they were like, you know, if they were ready to push that into what is now like the pipeline of moving things into, you know, TV and film, I think it would have had a decent, run.
I still think it can, actually. I think it'll translate very easily into a I watch so many miniseries on TV. I'm like, oh my God, you know, how did these people get greenlit for these things that are going nowhere? And I realize, oh, there's this guy's daughter's involved in it.
Yeah.
That guy's cousin. I just saw something and I was like, every name in there, I'm like, oh, it was the son and the daughter of some famous person. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how it happens. Well, I was not born into a famous family. But I still think, like I said, I think the concept for 21 Down holds up really well. The book reads great. I mean, I had to read it like 4 times because every time I did a press check on it, I had to make sure the pages were in order. So I read it like 3 or 4 times at least. And, you know, it holds up. It's fun. It is really pretty. Like I said, for a book, it's so dark. It's actually really gorgeous looking.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, people know Jesus's work from, I think last book he did was he was doing Captain America and the Punisher at Marvel recently.
I wonder if I know any of his work.
Yeah, he did the Punisher for last year, and he did a bunch of Captain America.
You know what's funny is most of the stuff I have a better grasp of comics that came out before I was born, I feel like, than I do of comics that came out during my lifetime, which is weird. But
your life was a lot different than ours, right? Because, I mean, when we were growing up, there was no computer. So
yeah,
think about a world where no computer. You know what people did? They actually went out and talked to each other. And
I know, crazy.
6 miles to get to the comic book store on Sunrise Highway in Long Island.
There you go.
It's I mean, it's like when I wanted to get into comics, I just looked up best Batman comics. But I feel like in your guys' generation, you would just go to the store and then what was on the shelf, right?
Justin, where did you live in Long Island, Justin?
I lived in Wantagh from 9 to 17.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's just...
I lived there twice. I lived there in Valley Stream in Baldwin.
There are a ton of... I know so many people in comics that live on Long Island. It's crazy.
Well, it was just some girls I met, so I lived there for like 6 months and freeloading gym for a couple of months. And one of them, I was between homes.
So what is, you talked about a lot was pulled from this book. Well, first I want to know what is this book about, because we've talked about it, but what is 21 Down about? And then I also want to know what do you think pulled from it?
All right, Justin, you want to nail that?
Basically the premise was that these kids were granted superpowers that they couldn't control and they most likely didn't want. And those powers would lead to their death at age 21, and they couldn't figure out why. So Preston and Mickey Rinaldi both went out and joined forces to try and figure out what was happening, because it was going to happen to him, and he wanted to know how to stay alive, like we all would want that. And then she had her own motivations in it that you'll see in the story itself. The idea was we were very grounded at the time. We were very on the street. It wasn't the larger universe of superheroes. You know, they were very much on the periphery, but it was kind of like a street level noir take on what if these people who traditionally we didn't see having superpowers had them. And we did different riffs on different types of characters that would pop up. But realistically, it was just about the two characters' relationship and how they were dealing with mortality, death. Preston had already lost both his parents, and his brother was a cop, but his brother was, as much as he loved him, his brother was still using him for help to use his powers without really actually giving back to his brother. So they had a strained and interesting relationship. And a lot of that was, you know, at the time, it was something that we really enjoyed doing, and people were responding to it very well. But it's difficult when you deal with primarily a company that's bread and butter is superheroes, and then you try and deviate from those things within the same kind of imprint universe. So that otherwise, I think if it was presented in a Vertigo model or something where the audience perception wasn't, oh, it's another superhero book, it just happened to have superhero elements in it, it probably would have done better.
Yeah, but.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know, because I feel like if it has, especially with Kickstarter, if it has a hot chick on the cover, I feel like that's going to perform better than any superhero book.
I don't know.
There's certain people that can do it that way. I think that there's definitely a demographic on Kickstarter where it works extremely well. And
yeah,
but I don't necessarily know that. I mean, it wasn't. I want to say Radiant Black. Didn't that start on Kickstarter or no?
Did it?
Right, and then that got picked up and that did really well, I think. And they had spin-offs from it. I don't know. I don't follow mainstream comics as much as I used to, so I may be making a mistake, but I think that's one of the superhero books that leapt off of.
My comic store is like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and like Fund My Comic, basically at this point. That's my comic store.
This book is an adult book, though.
Okay.
It's not for kids. There's even a little nudity in I think the 13th issue has a little TNA in it, but we were writing it like sort of like for grown-ups when we were writing it. We were trying to write. I think what Justin and I, because we're both visual people, we were trying to write what we would like to watch. If it was a series or a movie or a TV series, something we would watch. And when it came out, it was extremely different than everything. I mean, it did its own thing. And I think what was really nice was I think the Just Go covers also set a tone for the book. People saw the covers and the design with a lot of negative space and the logo.
Yeah, that's one thing I like.
Yeah, nothing looked like that at the time, for sure.
Yeah, and it stood out. We had that in a Resistance cover. Resistance was like probably not the greatest experiment in cover design, but I did like the aggressiveness of it. It was an aggressive design. But in the end, it was probably not the greatest thing we did for ourselves on it.
I know, but I feel like we were ready to just try things, to try them. It wasn't so much that we were worried about like filling the shoes of the person who had done a character before us. We were really like, what happens if we do this? What happens if we go ask people we love their artwork to contribute to these things? And I think that was a precursor to the way that we approached Jonah Hex. I think that having the freedom of just doing the covers the way we did, put that mentality in there.
It's definitely my, because I had an advertising background, and I always felt like the comics were so limited. Like nobody was experimenting. Like the covers were all the same, and now it's even worse, right? Because now the covers have nothing to do with the story, and they're all pinup covers, And I just felt like at the time, I think, if you look at the books Justin and I worked on, including Hex and including Power Girl, because even with Power Girl, we set off to do something different with Power Girl, different than has been done with the female characters up at DC at the time. That's for sure.
We had to push back on it too. We had to fight for it, and we just said we don't want to do it the way that you're suggesting. We would like to try and do it this way.
Oh my God, I love that run, you guys. I'd love to at one point get you guys just to talk about that run. I mean,
Power Girl.
Yeah, I love that.
Run. It's funny because originally Amanda wasn't drawing it. I think it was going to be Aaron Lopresti, if I remember correctly.
Really?
Yeah, and then he bailed out on it for some reason. And oh no, he was taken from us. That's right, because we were supposed to have Aaron, and then another office offered him a job, and he jumped at it. And I think we had two other artists we were talking about with it, and they kept getting taken from us. And Amanda was watching this happen, and Amanda's like, Jesus Christ, like, I'll just do it. Why not? Let me just do it. And, Amanda said, I can do it for 12 issues, which we were happy to get those 12 issues out of her. And it just happened to be lightning striking with them. When they came out, they did okay. But the nostalgia and, over the years, it's actually the audience has grown for that series. I mean, they call it, people in comics tell us that's the 12-ish. That's where Power Girl became Power Girl.
Yeah.
And, and so much so they recently, after me bugging them for another 4 or 5 years, they recently reprinted the trade, and it's doing very well. I think it's probably the only royalty checks Justin and I get from DC of the Power Girl books.
It's definitely on the left side of the period when we get those, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely. So we were Justin and I were always trying to do things a little differently than everybody else, and I think that's also what was part of my end of the Marvel Knights too, is like want to do something different there, and probably also why I had to get out of there and kind of do my own thing, because I just felt like we already had Mark Waid, right? And we already had Roy Thomas. I mean, these guys are so great at their job. And we're like the guys, we're supposed to come in and shake shit up a little bit and fail a lot, because we failed a lot, but we failed upward. Looking back, this stuff was fun and crazy. But we can write a book like Bobby Chase is writing, where we could talk about every single office and confrontation and us trying to quit jobs. How many times did we try to quit Countdown? Like 3-4 times?
Yeah, that was
Yeah, Countdown was at like after the New 52, we tried to quit that because we just felt it was like they didn't know what they were doing, But we were very vocal about things, and I definitely was not shy about calling an editor and saying this is a bad idea or
that's
whatever.
good.
And sometimes it worked. Well, sometimes it worked for us because with Jonah Hex, they said, okay, you go get the artists and get the cover artists and, you know, just do your thing. And they actually left us alone, and we actually got a lot of great creators. You know, I mean, you know, at one point I'm in Barcelona having dinner with Jordi Bernet, and he's like, okay, you know,
That's awesome.
he's like, but it has to have fun in it. It has to be fun. That was just the, you know, but like we got really lucky with a lot of creators that the right time and the right place, and we were able to give them stories that they wanted to draw. You know, we kind of Justin and I kind of custom made some of the stories for the artists.
Oh,
Yeah. I noticed like every time one of your friends, I noticed they always did something on Jonah Hex. It looks like everyone did. By the way, Death Metal Hero said you guys were kind of ahead of the curve on this type of storytelling. Yeah, it looks like, I mean, even your resume, even now with what you're doing, you do so many different types of stories. You know, you look at a lot of writers, even some of my favorites. I mean, like for example, Chris Claremont's a favorite writer, but he's the X-Men guy. I'm not saying you can't do other stuff, but you know, like what that story is. But you guys have done so many different, even with Justin, like with your line, like I read like Standstill was very different from from like Power Girl. So I was like, whoa, like, which is good. I feel like it makes you guys better writers when you could just do so many different things.
I feel like I creatively have to do that because otherwise I just feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again, which, you know, if you work in a restaurant, that's important because every meal has to be exactly the same. So everyone's experience is the same. But creatively speaking, yeah, I like to try different things, different voices, different styles. So yeah, I mean, I think that makes the experience so much better.
I think that's why I love comics so much is you look and it's just you can do a different story of any genre and it costs. I mean, obviously artists cost different, but at the end of the day, you're just paying an artist to do it. And that means you could do anything you would imagine. If you want to do a low stakes thing, you can. If you want to do a high stakes thing, you know, and that's one of the things I think that makes this meeting so special. And you guys definitely take full advantage of it.
Well, we are definitely creators that we didn't run for the money. We kind of ran for we want to do what we want to do. And, you know, we're paying the price for that now because it would have been a lot better if we did Batman for a couple of years. That's for sure.
Oh,
you know?
But what was that like for editors, by the way? Because I keep saying, oh, I'd love to write Batman, but I can't help but feel like that's got to be like a bloodbath trying to get a Batman job, right?
No, I wrote Batman and Superman for those Walmart books, you know, the short stories. Oh, I got it out of my system because I had one Batman story I wanted to tell, and I had one Superman story I wanted to tell. And we did get to do Maelstrom, which was Superman and Supergirl, which I'm very proud of. We got to work with Phil Noto on that. And then we also did Supergirl 12, and you know we did it. We hit the heroes, but we were never the mainstream guys, and they didn't invest us, and they didn't look at us like that either. They looked at us like these are the guys that will make something weird, a little more commercial, or you know, I don't know. I felt like they had a giant wheel that they just spun when they came to our work, and whatever characters landed on that wheel, I get a call, or Justin get a call and say, "Hey, you guys interested in this?" And we'd be like, what could we do with that? You know?
We had a lot of rejections on that stuff too, because we were like, we just come out of left field on something and be like, oh, let's do this. And they'd be like, no, you can't do that.
Oh, yeah. I think when there was a time later on after everything, I remember they had me pitch like Green Arrow when he was like 70. And I gave this pitch in, and he was living in a trailer park, and he there was a strip joint / sporting goods store that he kind of did work for, and he was always in the strip joint drinking, and people would come in and have him. They would hire this older Green Arrow to kind of take care of messy things for them, like somebody's been stealing their barbecue and shit like that. And it was just a funny thing, but they asked me to write it, and then. For a year later, I was getting no work, and somebody said, "Well, we saw your proposal for Green Arrow, and we're kind of afraid to hire you." And I was like, "You guys asked me to write him as an old man, and you know what are you talking about?"
They wanted you to write The Dark Knight Returns.
It was like it was out of context. They were like, "Oh, that was for something." I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't pitch Green Arrow."
Like I'm doing a 70-year-old Green Arrow.
What the hell's wrong with you guys? You know.
They wanted him to have one arm, I think, and be like what was he in The Dark Knight Returns? It's probably what they wanted, honestly.
You know, by the way, I'm looking at that proposal and I'm like, I'm just gonna do that with another character that could shoot arrows. Because how many people can shoot arrows? I mean, it's pretty easy. But we definitely with 21 Down, we hit a beat working together on it, and like I said, I got to ink Jesus on it, so. When I was inking it, I was like over inking it probably, and worrying about everything. But Paul Mounts did an amazing job on this series. Like everybody was firing, full steam ahead on that series. I'm so proud of this trade book. I think anybody who gets it is just going to love it.
Yeah. Someone said Old Man Robin. Yes, he's public domain, right? You can do whatever you want.
Old Man Robin Hood. Yeah, I would call him someone. I would make it maybe a girl.
Make him original.
Yeah, it felt like they wanted an Old Man Logan version with Green Arrow.
And I was happy with. I like the idea of the trailer park in Florida. Him living it. It's so easy to write that. It's right down the street from me. I can
just go. There's a strip club slash sporting goods store near you as well.
Yes, that's what inspired me because, which is that combination's not great, but. I thought it would just be funny.
Unique.
But look, if they gave me that to write, it would have been a bestseller. So what do I know?
Yeah. It's Death Metal Hero said, I'm still baffled they didn't get your input for that train wreck of a Hex movie.
We had a guy. There was a guy at DC that told us to our face, you guys are not involved in this movie. We're taking it from your book. They're using your book for inspiration. But you guys are not involved at all, and you're not going to be involved. And he was not a great person. He's no longer there, by the way. He got fired right after that movie, I think. Let go after that movie. But he told us to our face, and we were like, why? And we're like, we've written this now for 50-something issues. It was just taken over by a bunch of people who thought they could do it better than us, and boy, did they not do it better than us. The writing was not great. The directing was not great. I will say the actors were just fine. They just had nothing to do.
Yeah.
Josh Brolin is great. Megan Fox is great. John Malkovich is great. All these people individually are fantastic. It's just that the movie itself, it felt like they felt like they needed to make it supernatural and superhero-y and take it out of the time frame, and they did everything wrong you could do in a movie. It is a lot of fun to watch because you can't believe how insane and wrong they got that movie.
Wow.
So I would say watch Jonah Hex because you've never seen so many wrong things done in a row. To destroy.
That's interesting. Well, at least you guys got invited to set. I mean, that's cool. I heard is Megan Fox a comic fan?
So that wasn't Warner Brothers that invited us to the set, by the way.
Oh, really? Who invited you?
No, that was one of the producers was involved years ago with me when Joe Quesada and I sold Ash, and as a nice gesture, because he knew they would take it from the books, and he knew Warner Brothers wasn't doing anything with us. He invited us to the set, so it was very sweet of him to do that. And we had a blast. Justin and I had a great time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
I even got swine flu.
What's that?
I even got swine flu.
There you go.
Well, good to hear now. That's it's so interesting too. One of the things that's interesting, and we'll get to your book soon, Justin. But one of the things that's interesting is so we're going from Tabs, your first work as a writer, to now your most recent, both funding at the same time. But I'm curious because you guys have written together. Jimmy, I know you started as an inker. When you started writing, how long had you been writing by the time 21 Down had been out?
I think I was when that came out. So I did Deadpool run before that and Superboy around there, and I think I was doing stuff I wrote for Black Bull. I think I wrote like Beautiful Killer and a couple of the books there, and but this was the first. This felt like something. This was super exciting. 21 Down was super exciting because it was like pretty much everyone on the book was somebody I knew, and it felt like we like as a team we could have went into year 2 so easily. Like just, you know, it was heartbreaking when we had to stop because we really felt like we were on a big roll for season 2, you know. And we were promised it, and then they went back on their promise, which happens.
Is that why we're all these stories? Are they a reason why you guys might be doing some self-publishing?
No, well, you know, so there's you know, we had fun working for the companies. We had fun doing it, but at the end of the day, you're left with nothing in your hands. You're
Right.
left with, you know, Amanda and I rode 125 Harleys, and you know, I don't own any. You know, I have nothing of that. You know, they'll keep making us movies, so it's like you know, you can do both things at the same time, which we tried to do. You know, but lately it's been getting worse and worse, and I'd rather, you know, I as we near death, I'd rather focus on some of my own ideas. I still work for other people, you know.
Yeah.
But I definitely enjoy doing my own thing. The only hard part with that is, and maybe Justin will talk a little bit more about that, is creating your own deadlines, because life does get in the way a lot these days, and especially with Justin's life, it's like a roller coaster year. Yeah, if you want to buy this book for any reason, it's to support Justin and his love of trees.
Yeah, it's been an interesting, I don't know, 12 years, I think. I feel like 2012, things were like swimming upstream, and then it's just been like a nonstop struggle since then. But yeah, I mean, I don't, the deadline thing isn't really as much of an issue as like juggling human beings, because you're not the only one doing something. And obviously, you know, you're working with artists, and they want, you know, they want to be working, and they want security just like everyone else wants security. And in doing things like Kickstarter, sometimes you don't really know what you're getting into with the person. You don't know them that well. Sometimes they go, oh, you know what? I got to take 6 months off because I just got offered this gig. They saw the book, and now they want me to go do this. Or sometimes they just get outright poached, or you know, they have to be watching out for themselves. I don't have a problem with that. I understand it, and as I've been saying it to people for years, you're in the business of you. I know you think you're in the business of writing Batman or X-Men or whatever, but at the end of the day, those things have to funnel back into your success more so than, because they're just going to pick up and they're going to go do their own thing anyway without you. They're just going to find someone else, and the level of quality doesn't really even matter at certain points. And you see them go through trends and styles, and you know, start scrambling and looking for whatever's going to sell more books for them, and jumping on, you know, trends and all kinds of other stuff that really doesn't speak to the core of why these products exist, why these characters are so beloved. And so for me, I got kind of tired of that. And like Jimmy said, they weren't really offering us stuff where we were going to be seeing royalties, you know, when we couldn't see anymore, you know, like we're still, you know, so it's difficult. Hey, Peter, it's difficult to sort of to walk that line of saying, I want to do this and I want to be successful as a mainstream custodian of these characters. But also, I think anyone who's creative, and I think we see it with enough people, you know, they ultimately want to do their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's Tiny Onion, where it's Scott Snyder, or it's, you know, any number of creators, they reach a point and they go, you know what, this has been fun, but I think I've built enough of an audience that now I can do the things, you know, that make me happy. And I just decided to do those things with, you know, with no real parachute. And it just, I reached a point for myself where I wanted to do things that I felt good about and didn't feel like I was just taking checks because I needed a job. And which is not the greatest strategy for creative types, but you know, it is what it is. You know, I'd rather be poor and happy than miserable and rich, but no one gets rich in comics. That's, you know, the top 1% of people. Yeah. And shooting for that is insanity, just like it is for anything else, you know?
Yep.
That's, you know, it's about, but if you love it, it's like what keeps you going. It's, I mean, obviously it is work. It feels like work a lot of the time, but it does, when you're done, it feels really good to look back on something. Like, yeah, I have a catalog of work to show off. I do have a quick question from the chat before we get in.
Yeah.
Question for Jimmy about the cover. Yeah, the covers of Fantasima were great. My question is why nobody else would have a cover like y'all's. It feels like a sticker on the cover. First of all, man, my name is on the screen. Spell it correct. Come on. But anyway, Vaughn might want to look into that. Might want to look into that. Yeah, I'm curious.
So I can explain it to you. I can explain it to you. So this is one of the covers. Let's see. Let's get it. And it's called a spot varnish.
Oh, spot varnish. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
But it's also a satin. So the paper itself, the cover paper stock has a satin finish. So it flattens the artwork out a little bit. And then the spot varnish is a separate layer we have to do on a separate layer. So these books have to go to another printer. So we print them and then they're sent out to another printer to put a spot varnish on it. And then that's heated and dried and then sent back to our regular printer to finish the book. It is not the cheapest process to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't suggest it for everyone because on Fantasima, it would have been smart if we didn't do it. Fantasima was a Kickstarter that pretty much broke even, you know. But the spot varnish costs extra money. Everything costs extra money. These books were a little expensive to make.
I think that's something a lot of, I feel like I'm sort of helping backers understand that. They're like, well, why is this comic more expensive? And what am I getting? And to do the cost analysis, when you look at, these are really boutique, books. They're not something we can mass produce because you're not coming in a Kickstarter with 8,000 copies,
right?
10,000 copies, and which would make life much easier. But the reality is that you're doing small print runs, and the more bells and whistles and beautiful things you add to that, the more astronomical the price. And for those of us who really are reluctant to do things like the China route, now I always preface this by saying I'm not going to criticize anyone for using China. I just don't like the concept of, I would rather use American, but American's more expensive by a lot. And I've worked with tons of printers and priced out tons of printers, and it's always the per unit cost is very high. So trying to figure out on top of the per unit cost and the ridiculousness of international shipping, it gets crazy. And I feel like it's a detriment to us who are creating these things, and obviously it's a steep climb for the backers.
Yeah, I mean, you look at one of these comics, and I could print them. So when you get a Marvel and DC comic, they cost like $1.50 to print, $1 and a quarter, whatever, and they're doing massive amounts of numbers.
Yeah.
But when I print this, I'm only doing a couple of hundred, right? 300, 400 of this book, and with that comes a heavier cardstock. It's not crap. And these books can run from $5 to $7 to $8.
Oh my God.
Okay. So then when you get to that point, you realize that you have to, with the shipping and with the Kickstarter, you have to
$2 worth of packaging. You get $5 to $10 worth of shipping.
At first, I thought I spent a lot of and now I'm like, man, that wasn't that expensive at all. You gave me a good deal. I mean, that's great. I mean, I knew it was, but it's like, I always was like, these crowdfunding campaigns, I like them, but they charge too much. And then I started making my own and doing the numbers, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
How the hell am I going to make money?
Hey, listen, I can make this book in a really crappy cover, like Marvel and DC does with the same cover stock as the inside. I can go cheap on it, but my thing is, why would I want to do that to the fan? I mean, they're buying something that is special for them. It's me saying, this is the best I can give you. This is the best quality I can give you. Printing, paper, story, art. I don't want to cheapen out my stuff, and I'd rather spend the money. Look, I'm going to hold up two books that I think are amazing. These two books right here. Let me see. Okay. These are both done by Justin, right? Blur and the Relic Hunters. And these are novels. He wrote these novels, and they're beautifully packaged. I want a row of like 100 of these, Justin.
I'm working on it.
Okay. And they're fantastic. And I see it, and I'm like, I'm going to steal this idea. I'm going to try to write a book yet one day. And but like, I love the idea of this, and but it's not cheap. Like, you go and print these things and you realize, okay, I want the cover stock to be this way, and the inside is going to be the inside. but you realize that you look at the Kickstarter price, what people are asking, and it makes sense. I mean, we're asking. I don't know, what are we asking for the hardcover on this? Can you go down?
Yeah, let me go ahead and right. Oh wait, sorry, you got to scroll on both
Yeah, it's just
hardcover.
a regular hardcover.
That's a good deal. That's a really
that is 320 pages with a hardcover, an insert sheet, and we're actually going to try to spot varnish the cover because we get that goal. But I got to tell you, it's not cheap on our end, and that's we had an argument because Patrick and I were like saying we should be charging 60 or 65 for it because it's a big book, but at the same time, we're not going to get people to back it for that much. What's the cheapest we can do it for? And that's the cheapest we can do it for because we honestly, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure everybody got paid on this. And, I'm probably an idiot. I probably should have charged a lot more for it, but I wanted to do this in cooperation with DC and create this great thing. I mean, we're hoping by the next week, I'm hoping we can get the Kickstarter up another couple of thousand, hopefully. So everybody can just get paid on it. We give that number, right, with the goal number, but the goal number is just to make sure the expenses, printing and stuff get paid. It's like
that's my goal numbers are to make sure my people get paid.
Right.
Yeah.
And right. I'm a secondary thought on all these things.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I on Fantasima, I didn't get paid. Everyone else got paid. I didn't take a dime from the campaign.
Man.
The only time I pay myself is with these. Because it's me. It's all me doing it.
Wait, which one is that? Is that Blur?
Yeah, it's Blur, Relic Raiders. I just did Buzz Buzz Kill Kill, and I have
wait, I don't have Buzz Buzz Kill Kill. Is that coming?
Yeah, I finished that one up last month.
Oh, okay.
That's like 320 pages of novel.
How many pages are in the? Oh, these are almost 200.
Yeah, I was trying to keep them around the same size, but sometimes the story just like gets away from me.
Man,
Buzz Buzz Kill Kill was 300 and change. I think Neon Diva's 300 and change.
Yeah, these are great. These are a great size because I took Blur on the airplane with me and read it. So
wow,
these are a great size for me.
People are used to their tablets, their phones, and everything else. So I was like, all right, who wants to carry around, a brick with them? So I tried to design everything so it was easy to get, easy to use, easy to carry, easy to hand to someone else and go, hey, you want to read this?
I think we should adapt all the books we've done, Justin, into these little paperbacks.
That'd be cool.
I want a big row of them. You know me, I'm the completist.
It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot of coffee. I don't know. I have four of these right now, but I have to pull back because I don't know how fast people read. So I already have 2 other novels finished that are waiting to be put out. And
Blue Geisha
Holy crap!
Blue Geisha 3 is a comic though.
Yeah,
yes, Blue Geisha is a limited series. This is 1 through 3 that's available right now.
Okay, so it's a limited series. So it's like Fantasima then.
It's only got 18 hours left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously, people, this needs to be prioritized.
Yeah, but get both. Get both. I definitely want both. I mean, they look fantastic. But Justin, going forward, so we go from your first work as a writer to now you're on your own doing this. So I guess I want to know. So what was the road that led you here? Like, what happened? What did you learn? How do you compare starting out on 21 Down to now here you are?
I feel like I've had just a crazy, like my stuff is different than a lot of other people's. I don't start out getting into mainstream doing creator owned stuff. Like, I don't know who does that. So, and then I went from that to doing mainstream superhero stuff to doing indie stuff. But it's been interesting. My style has changed a lot. My understanding of the medium and how I do things has changed a lot. Having to necessitate learning different parts of the job. So when Jimmy and I were writing scripts, it was like, okay, write a script, hand it in, and let's, like maybe they would let us be hands-on and maybe they wouldn't. We were more hands-on with one project than another. We once had an editor say, you don't talk to the artist, I talk to the artist. And I was like, okay, that's weird, but fine.
Mm.
And
who was that? Do you remember?
I'm not going to say.
Was it at DC or Marvel?
It was at DC.
Okay.
And Yeah, the reality was I gained a greater appreciation for other members of the creative team that work on these comics because I was trying to understand it better. So I was trying to understand lettering. I was trying to understand coloring by actually doing it. And some of it worked out, some of it didn't. Some of it was a good learning experience. And it definitely with the way that I do things now, because of the freedom of it, I can just give direction in a script and not just make the entire thing, bullet pointed all the way down to everything has to be done this way. Some guys respond really well to it. Some guys get completely lost. But it's been an interesting journey, and I go through these different things where I get creative ideas and I say, is this one worth pursuing? Which is why I started doing like the anthology books. So Bleeding Pulp was 2 stories in one, and I would go on with that, and that's where Blue Geisha came from. And I was talking to my friend Jerry, and he was like, you should just break them out like the old Marvel 2-in-1s or the Marvel, books when they did that, and then break out the series that, gets the most responses. So that's what happened with Blue Geisha. I was like, all right, let's do the limited series of Blue Geisha and see how people respond to that, because they were responding really well to the first episode that was in Bleeding Pulp anthology.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, you've got so much stuff going out, and it's nice, going back to this. And I wonder. So, how do you compare collaborative? Because I've never co-written something with anyone yet. How do you compare that to writing on your own?
I think it's just a different process. I think there's positives and negatives about both. A lot of times it's good. First of all, you have to have a good relationship with the person you're working that closely with, because there's a lot of ego involved in most things. And some people's egos are centered properly, and some are wildly in different directions. Some people undervalue themselves. Some people overvalue themselves. And you have to understand, too, at the end of the day, if you're 2 people that want the same thing, that you have to be able to concede certain things that, like, I think that my idea is brilliant and your idea is not as good, but we should use mine. And a lot of times you have to find a middle ground on those things. It's good to have a sounding board, because a lot of this is solitary work. I spend so much time, I have like a core group of people who always respond on Kickstarters and say, they're enjoying the books or whatever. But there's, several hundred people that I don't actually hear from. So sometimes it gets very lonely and sort of like, what am I doing? Like, is anybody really reading this stuff? Mm-hmm. Not that that's the only thing that drives you, but every once in a while, you're kind of like, hey, am I nuts doing this? Like this, like Blue Geisha gets a little crazy at times, and certain stories that I do get a little crazy at times. Jimmy just sent me some coloring for something that we're doing together, and I was like, oh my God, this story is batshit crazy. And like, people are either gonna get it.
There's a page, what page I'm talking about. I'm like, maybe he could have colored those a little less fleshy, But the name of the book is Sex and Violence, right? So
Oh, you're doing that still. Okay, so I was gonna ask if you guys are working on anything together. So it seems like you guys are still working on some stuff.
We have another Sex and Violence book coming. It's volume 4. Wow. And we got Justin. Justin's doing a story.
I think it's like the nastiest thing I've ever written. Like, when I see that, I'm like, oh my God. Like,
it definitely, the sex part of the title comes through on this one. But honestly, get past the sex part, it's probably the most violent thing we've ever had.
Wait, I'm just dealing with and it's only 10 pages.
Right. I got it, and I read it, and then I looked at it, and then the art came in, and then the coloring came in, and I'm like going, well, that's why we don't work for other people so much.
That's nuts.
Yeah, somebody's going to be pissed off, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, but that's okay.
You can't make a book called Sex and Violence and not piss people off.
No, the other story in it, written by me, is complete opposite of that one. It's Amanda's drawing it with Ben Caldwell, and it's about 2 women fighting in a senior's home. So it's completely different. I will say, and we have a couple other short stories in there. We have actually one I'm inking right now. But I didn't write it. I don't want to tell you who the writer is because that's like a free publicity thing for the guy. But I'm making Tony Akins on a story right now that I haven't inked a story in many years, but I'm kind of having fun with it. It's a little,
Oh,
it's a little
nice.
crazy. And I'll let you know the writer eventually when we do the publicity for the thing. But it's going to be a nice chunky book that we'll probably lose money on. But it's also, it's also like I love those books, the sex and violence books, and I'm happy to have Amanda and Ben Caldwell as well doing something where I didn't think I'd get either of them on the book. It's just the right. Sometimes I bug people at the right time, for sure. But that's gonna be that's the next one after 21 Down. How dare you, Peter? How dare you? Peter, you should be working and not watching a computer screen. Okay.
So, Justin, what's this book about?
It's essentially set in feudal Japan, but a fantasy version of it. So I'm not trying to appropriate anybody's culture or anything. It's just feudal Japan, and there's a war going on between humans and demons, and the demons are trying to establish order over the islands of Japan. And there's this prophecy that this one particular half-breed demon is going to be born that's going to bring balance to both sides to protect her demon and her human heritage. But she doesn't have any idea about most of that or why she exists. She's just obsessed with finding the man that she thinks killed her mother, which she believes is her father. And there's all kinds of fantasy characters in it from Japanese mythology that I've kind of twisted to my own needs. And it's essentially her journey of discovery about who she is and whether or not, the vengeance that she seeks is worth the trouble that she goes through, and what the outcome is. Will she fulfill a prophecy that she doesn't know that she's meant to, she doesn't understand. She was just a little baby. Her mother was actually killed before she was born. She was born post-mortem from her mother and found by a farmer and raised, and just basically trying to figure out who her real father was, why she exists. And as she starts to encounter these other creatures, they start to inform her that she's part of a bigger plan for things. And, it's just basically an Odyssey set against, samurai background. And, it's very mature, especially issue 3. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And I realize I'm putting a lot more sex in the things I'm working on than I have ever done before. I don't know why that is. I don't know. Just like,
We're not working for I imagine Power Girl. You had to hold back. I mean,
no. Power Girl. We wrote like it was. I think we started one way, but we started writing it for Amanda after a while.
I also think we purposely didn't want to sexualize it, but the sexualization of her was more.
Oh, so it was her fault.
No. Actually, if you read the Power Girl book, it's not a very sexualized book. She's drawn. She looks a certain way. That's who she is.
Yeah.
But the book, other than Vartox hitting on.
Yeah, I was gonna say Vartox. What about the Pregnoray and all that? I read it.
Well, yeah, but that's just fun. I mean, that's what you make comics for, to be completely insane.
It's funny. I actually did a stream I was on where it was called. It was just talking about comics I like, and I just recommended. And I actually recommended that run. The Power Girl run. I was like, that's one of my favorites because it's just what I loved about it was you guys just made it was so self-aware of what Power Girl is. Because Justin, I remember you telling me that they were trying to make Power Girl serious. Because to be fair, she did go through some traumatic stuff in Infinite Crisis, but it's like I feel like that wouldn't have been as fun.
There was just that trend right there when that book was coming out, where everyone was like dark and angsty, and superheroes walking on people's brains and just things that were just like not fun. Like they were okay. If you want to have 10 books like that, at least have one book that's like dessert, or like a relief from that. A release valve on all the dark. And look now, this it's like you can't just come up short of being the boys. Either be the boys, or find another path for these characters instead of reimagining them as that's the thing. I can't stand one more evil Superman story. I'm just over it, you know, just because you've lost touch with your inner child and your understanding of there is hope and joy in the world doesn't mean that we need to read about that in these kinds of comics. But
yeah,
that's why I always say, like, the comic I'm writing, I always say is a reconstruction, is in an age of deconstruction. It's because everything as I started getting older, it was like they were basically telling me, yeah, superheroes aren't that cool, right? And I was like, I don't know, I thought they were cool. And like these writers are trying to tell me that like being a superhero is terrible, it's not fun. And what I liked about the Power Girl run is that she made being a superhero fun.
Yeah, which is the opposite of what, you know, was intended. Oh, I lost my planet, and I don't know. My pitch was that, like, she's gorgeous, she's rich, she's superpowers. Why is she depressed?
right.
Like, we have enough depressed characters. Like, let someone have a little sunshine in her life.
Yeah, and she we got her, you know, by adding Atlee into the story, we got her to be the older sister, and with that you learn more about who she is, you know, because she's able to bounce off her reaction to things. And it was really important for us to, in 12 issues, to establish who she was. You know, I remember when we got the book, we asked them, where does she live? And they were like, I don't know. And what does she do for living? Like, they couldn't answer these questions. So right away we went in and said, okay, we have to establish who this woman is, you know, in order for us to write this book for a year. You know, the thing that always comes across in our work is when you can tell when we're having fun.
Yeah.
And,
I remember when I brought it up to Amanda, like when the first time I met all you guys actually at Terrificon, the same con, she goes, "Oh my God, this issue was so fun." Like, that was the first thing. And it comes across in the run that you guys are just having a blast.
Yeah. I mean, even when Amanda did Silk Spectre, it still felt like an Amanda comic in a weird way, because it had this sense of discovery about it that the other books didn't have, you know. But you know, it comes down sometimes. Look, sometimes we write great stuff and we get terrible artists. That one we wrote some fun stuff and we had a fun artist on it, you know.
Yeah.
And especially with Paul Mounts too, the colors were just. You wanted to buy the comics because the colors the books looked pretty.
Yeah.
You know, they were candy like, and you know, there's something to be said for that. When, like Justin said, things were dark everywhere around us at the time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like seeing stuff. You know, I like the color. I love Paul Mounts' colors in that series too. I mean, just it's great. But yeah, I mean, both these books look great in terms of the colors and everything. I love the premises of both Blue Geisha and 21 Down, which I have never, you know, I've been meaning to read and I just hadn't. Especially because Justin actually was the first one, the comic I'm working on now, he was the first one to ever give feedback on a script that I had done. And first of all,
and you lived.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. I mean, he lived because he had to read that garbage. Like, it was like I had like 30 pages before I got to the point of what I was getting to, and he was so you were more than generous with what.
I don't know. I always worry about because sometimes I don't express myself or I don't read the person I'm dealing with as well as like more normal people do. So I always have to be careful not to like. I don't want to offend anyone, but I also think you probably would have driven a letterer to suicide with the amount of dialogue.
I know, that was, I learned Justin did a sample letter of one of my panels and how many lines I had. And it was like, I was like, that visual alone changed the way I wrote forever.
It's like, you ever see a car full of balloons?
Yeah.
That's what the panel looked like.
It was like 12, I think, lines of dialogue with like 8 people talking in one panel. And he was like, you can't do this to your artist. And I was like, yeah, I can't do it to. So I learned from that. Also, all that dialogue did not make it into this draft because it was useless. So yeah, no, that definitely gave me some great feedback.
You gotta get through that. You gotta have them all talk at once and have someone come and go, all right, you shut up, you talk.
And actually, and I don't know if I ever mentioned this, Jimmy, but so Justin goes, here's an example, and he sent me one of the Jonah Hex scripts you guys did together of like comic format. So that helped me write too. So I stole from you guys.
There's no such thing.
I know.
We learned by looking at other people.
I know.
I interned, you know, I worked for Tex doing backgrounds. Yeah. You know, that's the natural way of getting into the business is you got to be a grunt for a little while, and then you find your legs, and you hope that you're dealing with semi-intelligent people. You don't always get lucky. We've had a couple of editors where, where they probably should be doing other jobs. They just weren't into what they were doing, or they were not great at their jobs. And then we've had brilliant editors that, help us out just with 2 sentences or 3 sentences. And we go, oh, that makes so much sense. It's like anything, you have to kind of fail at things to learn. And we've done plenty of that.
Yeah, I keep saying in interviews, it's okay to write garbage, just don't publish garbage. Like, thank God I rewrote my script so many times, and thank God I did. Thank God I totally trashed that whole draft I sent Justin.
And we had a book where they hired an artist that sent a note back saying she doesn't. Well, I'm not even going to get into it, but sometimes it's the wrong artist for the wrong book.
Yeah,
And so sometimes you get lucky. With Jonah Hex, with Power Girl, we got super lucky. With 21 Down, man, we won the lottery there, and a lot of it's a team effort, and but it is little miracles when things work out well, because the artists, Justin, I know hit on this a tiny bit, but the artists you have to babysit grown people.
I learned that.
I learned that. And they don't always produce. Life gets in the way. And I have a whole book was 48-page book. I have 27 pages drawn, and the artist said, I don't want to draw comics anymore. And he just left me high and dry. I paid him.
And this is why contracts exist.
And I can't finish it because his artwork looks like nothing else, and it doesn't work. So I have a file that it's pretty much I just threw thousands of dollars away because this guy just decided.
I have a couple of baby files like that, and they torture me. So I can't imagine how you feel about that.
Yeah, no, and I talked to the guy 3-4 times, and he's just like, I said, just finish the book then. Let's get you through the book, and it's like, no, I'm not drawing anymore. That's it. And I'm just like, I can't use what he drew because it just doesn't. It's like one of those things. And I also had a whole Kickstarter I did
where
I had somebody draw it and I didn't like it. So I had it redrawn because it just didn't work for me. And I ate that bullet. Man, but it happens.
I'm trying to find the balance.
These are other things people don't realize when they're looking at a Kickstarter is all that other stuff that happens.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in a situation now too where I've had a couple of books where I've had to either put them on hiatus or end them because of stuff behind the scenes, and I don't want to talk about it in public because I don't think it's fair. But I do wish at times that people would understand that I really am trying my best to make these things beginning, middle, and end. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes you don't hear from an artist for 3 or 4 months, and you've paid them, and they owe you X amount of pages, and it starts to trickle in. And sometimes there's things you find out about people 6 months into something, and you go, whoa, who's this person? And then you go, wow, I can't work like this. And a lot of that stuff doesn't get out, and I don't really want to badmouth anyone. So I just eat it.
Yeah.
But that's why when you see me doing stuff with someone like Branko, it's because Branko's always there.
Yeah.
I never have to ask him anything. I just wait. I just know there's going to be pages, things are going to show up, and he's going to be we're doing this thing right now. It's already done. It's all written. It's 120 pages, and we're just going to break it into 6 issues, and it's just done. And that's what it is. That might be one of the last things I do. I don't know. As I pursue more novels and see what happens with that, but
okay.
It's tough. It's a lot like Jimmy's saying, you put a lot of effort into this and we love it, but a lot of times it's kind of like, what am I doing here? Where is this going to take me? As much as I love it, have I reached a stage now where I'm professional, or am I a hobbyist, or am I just sort of, there's a lot of things that go through my head. I don't know about everyone else, but
yeah. No, I look, it's easy for me to just stop and work for other people and try to find work and take on stuff I don't want to do, which is, I spent
after the last thing where I spent 7 months working for free with the worst the worst freelance gig I've ever had. And there was nothing that could touch it. And then to not get paid at all for it.
Oh,
It's just like,
Yeah.
you know, that really puts a perspective on, like, you're like gun shy or whatever. You know, you like someone approaches and you're like, hey, you want to do this? I'm like, I don't know. Are you one of those people who's really excited at this con and then I never hear from you again? Are you, it's just, that's just how it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It is a tough business. It is a really tough business. I half of my, a quarter of my time maybe in the business was spent taking things we did and talking to people and flying out to other parts of the country to have meetings after meetings. I think of the money and the time I wasted on that West Coast with people that I will never get that time back. I'll never get that money back.
I think we spent about a decade chasing that whole Hollywood.
Yeah.
It wasn't like getting pulled along. It wasn't really chasing so much. It's
No.
sort of like there's a carrot out there, and every time we're ready to walk away, it drops a little closer to us. And then, yeah.
I mean, we did get Random Acts of Violence made, and that was nice.
God bless Jay Baruchel.
Yeah, with Jay. And what's that?
God bless Jay.
God bless Jay Baruchel. And, Painkiller Jane at one point, that was fun. But, I learned over the years that don't worry about those guys. Just do the books, and then hopefully they'll find the material. Sometimes they find it and steal it and change the name of it. But I've learned to make just great comics and don't worry about anything else. And Justin's the same way. I'll speak for Justin there.
Yeah, sorry.
We learned to we never wrote stuff so, hey, this is for Hollywood.
Mhm.
But we go out of our way to write stuff now that just like, who cares if it works as a film? If they're ever interested in it, they're just going to take it and change it anyway. So what's the difference?
I'm just talking about a period where everyone was calling and everyone was like, what's your idea? What's your idea? And then some of them just vanish, and some of them you go through a process, and yeah, it's just.
Oh my God. I had meetings with actors and directors and producers and on the phone with people, like, oh my God, people calling me raw, and it goes nowhere. It really, it's such a waste of time. And actually, in the end, what are you chasing? Like, who cares? I think, it took me longer than Justin to figure that out for sure. But I still throw we still have an agent, and I still throw him the books in hopes that somebody's interested. But at the end of the day, I watch cable TV. The stuff we write is 10 times better than 90% of the crap I'm watching.
Yeah.
And I realized that it's just some producer's kid that wrote it. I had a book once that they wanted to buy, and they wanted to buy the property, and they were going to hire a screenwriter, and the screenwriter never wrote anything before. And I was like, I've written 3 screenplays. Like, why would you give it to?
Yeah.
He went to this school though, and I'm like,
I went to school. Do I get hired then?
I said, well, the difference between him and me is I had my stuff published and shot, where you haven't. But it's, it's a crazy business. So we stick to making the comics, but it gets harder and harder with bigger companies entering the space.
Yeah. I mean,
it's getting harder and harder. And we're constantly looking for the next thing, the next way.
I mean, with me, I went the reverse of a lot of people. I started in film, and at film school, I had all these ideas, and I was like, I'm going to have to water all these down to get them made with budget and everything. And then I was reading Chris Claremont's X-Men. I was like, oh my God, he just goes from idea to idea to, why don't I just do comics? And that way, and then I fell in love with the medium, and I was like, I can get it as a film later, but I'm not really worried. If they don't do it, it's like what you said. If they don't do it, who cares? You made a good comic. Comics are
move now too, with the way the industry is and the way that the general entertainment media is just like, I don't know what is going on out there, but I definitely would not, pack up my bags and head out to Hollywood right now thinking I was going to get a job.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
People still do that, which always makes me laugh because eventually I get my crack cocaine from them. So anyway,
that's true. But thank you guys so much for coming on. This has been great. All right, we're 1 away from 400.
I know. I'm looking for that 400th backer.
Yeah, you'll get it. And listen, there will be people watching the replay of this, hopefully within the next however many hours. You know, these tend to get views after the fact, especially with you guys being on.
Sure,
So I wouldn't worry about
it's
that.
early too. It's like not
Yeah.
Almost there though. It's almost 400
Yeah,
backers. Come on, man.
Yeah. I'll listen after the stream is over, you know, you'll get a backer. But yeah, I'll see. But also, where can everyone find you? Because if you people watching this after the fact, where's the best way everyone can find your stuff?
Okay, on for me, paperfilms.com. Also, I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram. I'm the opposite of Justin. Go ahead, Justin. Where can they find you?
I'm just besides jvgray.com and Bleeding Pulp. It's at Bleeding Pulp for Instagram. I really don't do social media. I can't do it.
It's a lot.
He's like Amanda. Amanda doesn't do it either, by the way. Amanda.
I know. That's why I was always weirded out when I followed Amanda Rants a lot, and then I've never seen a post in the 4 years.
That's being ironic, but but you know, it also shows you that somebody can be very successful and not on social media at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disparaging people being on social media. I just think social media is a toxic environment that it just can't help poisoning itself after a while. And
yeah,
I got enough things to worry about. I don't need to worry about somebody storming my For You page with their political ideologies or whatever.
It gets very fun, man. No, and then it gets
not. I have to dunk out people. You know what's funny about social media? It's like people want you to explain things. Like sometimes I just say something, and they go, "Can you explain why you said that?" And I'm like, "Nope."
No, yeah, it's like doesn't. No, they're even. I mean, I've had people. I've said recently in a comment. I just said I thought the '90s Nick Fury movie was boring, and they were like, "Oh, you think this is good?" I'm like, "No, I just said I didn't like that. Doesn't mean just because I thought this was dumb doesn't mean I think something else that's two things can be bad for different. Like what? Like I had it was nothing to do with what I was talking about."
You know, everyone's entitled. Everyone feels like they can just walk into your house at any point and start complaining about your food, the way you decorated, how you treat your kids.
Yeah,
like that's how it is. It's like having people show up at your house and be like, "Hey, what's up, asshole? I'm gonna tear your house apart."
Yeah,
right.
You just tell everyone that you should move.
I've had people been like these guys in their 40s be like, "I don't like your opinions." I'm like, "Why do you follow me?" Like you don't have to do. Like I see you get mad every time I say it's okay. You could just I'm not.
I mute people, so they don't even know I don't hear them.
I do.
They don't even know. They're like they're writing me, and I'm like, why doesn't Jimmy answer me? I'm like, figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, but on that note, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and make sure to back these books. And I'll see you guys next time.
Do it. Don't forget.
Thanks, and keep an eye out. Follow me on all socials. I'm Vaughn Coleman on all socials. I'm going to be launching my Kickstarter hopefully next week, but we'll see. So thank you guys, and have a good one. Peace out.
Take it easy, buddy. Thank you, Vaughn.